the regular Planning Commission meeting of July. If you could call roll, please.
Gasson.
Here.
Hauser.
Here.
Salvia.
Here.
Bachman.
Here.
Klauser.
Here.
Harden.
Here.
Kenjuk.
Here.
Murphy.
Here.
Stone.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Appreciate you being here. We're going to do Pledge of Allegiance. If you could join us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thank you very much. We're going to start off with a time for you to have public comment. You're welcome to come to the podium, state your name and address. If it pertains to one of the public hearings we have tonight, if you'd hold off on that until we get to that subject. But anything else, please come up and make your comments.
Greg Pannone, 86 Mill Street. I just wondered if sometime in the future we could get an update on the Clinton River Trail, especially the paved section east of the bridge. There's a section that washed out into the river. We live right there. We see people almost going into the river. I know it's marked, but people are riding with their cell phones and they've hit the cones and hit the tape there. So if you have anything in the future to update, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Greg, before you leave the podium, would you state your last name again, please?
He is in Peter, A-N-N-O-N-E. And I'm on 86 Mill Street.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else that would like to provide a comment? Rose, is there anyone online?
No one's online.
Thank you. Okay, and we'll have a chance to come back to public comments near the end of the meeting as well. Approval of the meeting minutes for the regular Planning Commission meeting from June 2nd.
I will make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve
Support?
and support. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Gasson.
Yes.
Hauser.
Yes.
Salvia.
Yes.
Bachman.
Yes.
Klauser.
Yes.
Harden.
Yes.
Kenjuk.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Well, we have several public hearings tonight. The first is for consideration of 210 Diversion Street. Yeah, it's a special project that we've seen before, and tonight we're looking to look at site amendments. Is there someone from the client or applicant in the audience? I see Mr. Jim Epic moving, so I'm assuming so, but you'll just sit tight for a minute. We're going to have the planner do an introduction, and then you can do a presentation, and then we'll do public hearing after that. Video online?
No, John, you're stuck with me.
John, okay.
Sorry.
Live and in person.
Man.
I'm not going to say I'm disappointed, but.
Well, I wouldn't blame you if you did. So, yes, I'm here filling in for Vidya, and as you teed it up pretty nicely, Mr. Gasson, the applicant is here requesting an amendment to a special project that was approved back in March of 2024, which went through the whole entire approval process at Planning Commission and City Council. And in the process of constructing the project, there were a number of modifications that sort of evolved during the course of that. And maybe any one of those may not have pushed this into a significant or major change that required it to come back for an amendment, but sort of collectively, they all kind of contributed and we felt it would be best to come back to the Planning Commission and City Council to update you on the changes being requested and make sure that it was all still consistent with the intent of the original approval. So with that, quickly, the process is that we're going to have the public hearing, which is tonight, and then if the Planning Commission decides to make a motion, make a decision tonight, that information, along with comments from the public, will be forwarded to the City Council, who will make the final decision on the project. Okay, so with that, sort of the summary of the changes that are being proposed include modifications to the balconies on the buildings that encroach further into the required setback or the allowed setback, modified setback that was approved during the original approval. In fact, some of those encroachments actually go into the adjacent property. So that required an adjustment of the property line, and I believe also some easements as well to make sure there's access and ability to maintain those additions. So that's one change that was being made. Also, there were some parking garages. There was, I believe, one single detached parking garage that has been split into two separate garages with a slightly larger increase in square footage. So again, these are some modifications. There are also some modifications to the facades that are proposed. There's additional landscaping being proposed near the proposed garages. Another modification to the originally approved plan. No additional trees are proposed to be removed. The lighting as approved is all unchanged. There was some discussion about the trash removal process, and so we asked the applicant to provide some additional information on that during their presentation. Let's see. So really, those are the major changes, and as I mentioned, in terms of the process, they're here tonight as part of the public hearing to present those changes. And in our recommendation, we believe that those changes are all relatively minor and consistent with the originally approved plan, so we recommend approval with a series of conditions. Number one is providing the city a copy of the property transfer, as I mentioned, with the proposed balconies. That the city council and DPW approve the landscaping which encroaches into the public right-of-way, so make sure that they're comfortable with that. Payment into the city's tree fund in lieu of the replacement of 9 trees, if it hasn't already been done. I believe that was part of the original approval. And approval of proposed signage by the city administration administratively before installation. So staff can review those details on the signage.
Thank you, John.
Yep.
Appreciate that.
Of course.
So we're going to hear a little presentation, or as much as the applicant would like to present, and then we'll do a little dialogue with him, and then we'll open up to the public. Jim?
Great. Thank you, Mr. Gasson. Appreciate the commission's time tonight, and John, for your review, if I can figure out the right way to pull this up. Again, my name is Jim Epping. I'm a land planner and landscape architect, and I'm representing tonight Joe LaChurco of LaChurco Development Companies, a resident of Rochester, and with offices right down the street. We also have Roger Burnett, our architect, with us tonight, so we can answer all your questions. But I recognize some new faces tonight. Many of the commissioners were with us over the last few years. But what we have here are 2 adjacent properties that we spent a lot of time with the Planning Commission, the community, and the City Council over the last few years. And tonight we're talking specifically about both of them. They're 2 adjacent properties, both owned by Mr. LaChurco and his companies. And frankly, the reason they're 2 separate properties is because there's 2 different investment groups and they were started at slightly different times. But what we've presented consistently is that we've really got a neat opportunity here to create kind of a campus plan. This is on Diversion Street, just south of the river, with the trail on the north side. And our second project talks about expanding that trail on the south side. We have, I'll show you the plan in just a second, we have the northern project, which is called the Preserves of Rochester. Tonight we're talking about some minor modifications to 210 Diversion, which is a single building. The ultimate campus plan, again, envisioned 3 separate buildings, all for rent, residential. 2 on the northwest parcel will be constructed in the near future. And again, what we're talking about is a single 4-story building here with a detached garage. Admittedly, this is my old graphic, so we'll show you the new graphic in the elevations, but this does become 2 separate garages as opposed to one. 210 diversion, as it was approved, remains very, very consistent. We have 22 residences within 4 stories. We have some amount, 8 spaces of ground floor interior parking. We have now 2 external garages as well as some surface parking. The property itself, as I said, is adjacent to Mr. LaChurco's other piece, so in terms of that property transfer, we'll get into that. The building essentially is exactly the same. There's some small details that we're going through, but the materials remain the same, the architecture remains the same, the quality, the fit and finish all remain the same. What we've tried to do is, as we're working through the construction drawings and final engineering and structural engineering, we've been forced to make some modifications, so we want to share those with you tonight. Here's the view of the building looking west, the balconies that we'll talk about in a second, and then this is the building looking, standing east looking west. The one was previously was standing west looking east, if that makes sense. The changes boil down, in my opinion, into 2 different categories. One is just usability. How are the people that are living there and living nearby going to use or look at the building? And then there's a set of changes that we're requesting tonight that are really just caused by structural detail. Previously, we went through the site plan approval. Roger and his team did detailed architecture, but as we move from site plan approval to final construction, a lot of those details and structural engineering type issues require minor adjustments. So those are the 2 categories. In terms of usability, we have balconies on 3 sides. Actually on 4 sides. All 4 sides have balconies. The balconies were approved at 5 foot wide. As we started to look at other buildings in town, other buildings that we've constructed before, we recognized that the balconies are really important. So where we could, we wanted to increase that. On the north side, they remain at 5 foot because we're right up against, there's kind of a strange right-of-way. So the balconies on the front of the building remain at 5 foot. On the west side, where we have a real great view, we are able to expand those out to 6.5 foot, which makes it just a little bit easier to put a table and chairs and different things out there. We do have an easement on the side. Previously, the balconies were right up to about 1 foot off the property line. When we expanded those 1.5 feet, Joe's going to do kind of a splits in combination from his western property to his eastern property. That'll be recorded with the city and the county, but we're going to essentially make that property line 2 foot larger, and then we had previously a 5 foot easement on that side for maintenance. We're going to expand that to an 8.5 foot easement. So there'll be a lot change on the west side. There'll be an easement change on the west side, which we'll record, but it was all in an effort to make those balconies a little more usable. On the south side of the building, we're actually expanding the balconies to 8 foot. So where we can, we're backing up to our own property. We don't have any setback issues on the south side, and so those balconies are going to 8 foot. On the west side, where they're over our property, those will go to 1.5 foot larger as well, so 6.5. So 3 out of the 4 sides, the balconies get bigger and more usable, and some of the mechanics are, again, those easements and those property line shifts. The other thing that we looked at from a usability point of view is the other 2 buildings on the preserves, we actually didn't have any dumpsters, and we had all internal trash rooms where the residents would bring their trash into a trash room on the first floor. The trash hauler would come in, open up those doors and wheel it out and take it away. And it just makes the parking lot look a little nicer. We find that our residents really enjoy that internal in the winter. They don't have to walk across the parking lot. This building was designed with an exterior dumpster. As Roger and Joe worked through the details, we've eliminated that dumpster. We've brought the trash room inside. We've accommodated a striped parking spot so that the trash can come in and out. And as a result of removing that dumpster in the back, we were able to break the garage in half. It was a little long, so now we've broken it in half. We have added 1 additional stall. There were 12 spaces, now there's 13. And so that garage, I think, has gotten a little better because it's 2 smaller garages with landscaping in the middle, no exterior dumpster, and the dumpster or the trash came inside. So that was one of the site plan changes that you're seeing there, is the elimination of the dumpster and a slight modification to a door on the first floor on the east side. There are 3 lower level or first floor residences on this building with parking interior on the back. Previously, one of those units was ADA compliant. What we looked at and said, well, boy, they're all on the first floor, they all have individual access. So we've gone ahead and modified those 3 lower first floor residences to all be ADA compliant. So the interiors have changed, all the standards for door widths and counter heights and all those things will now be included in all 3 of those units. And what we had to do is to make those uniform. It's a minor change, but we actually moved one window or flipped a window on the first floor. So one of the changes that Mr. Jackson's company pointed out is that there's a slight modification to the architecture on the first floor. It was really just flipping a door and a window so the interior, the ADA compliant requirements would all make sense inside of those residences. But we're really proud of that. We've actually increased the number of ADA parking spots. We now have 3 total, and we have 3 residences, all ADA compliant. And again, the parking was modified slightly because of that. So those were the usability changes that we're requesting tonight. Structurally, we just talked about, you know, those modifications to the inside and slight outside for those lower units with the windows and the door widths and so forth. An elevator shaft has always been envisioned here. When we got into the actual mechanics of it and selecting the actual elevator, the top of the shaft actually is going up 22 inches higher than we had originally anticipated in our early elevations. So there's one small section of the building that is 22 inches higher than it previously was. But it is important to note that the overall building height is 16 inches higher. We were just at about 48 foot, now we're at about 49 and a half. I think your ordinance allows us to go up to 50 foot. So we're still below the ordinance, but the building did grow by 16 inches. And that is really all driven by the structural engineer that made sure, even though it's a flat roof, there's still an appropriate pitch and we've got the right support and structure. So it's the floor to ceiling height in each residence remains the same. I think we've got about 9 or 9.5 foot ceilings, but the top roof just got a little thicker. The garage design we mentioned, the garage is now broken in half. It's brick on all 4 sides. It's kind of buried on the eastern side because it backs up to the Main Street right-of-way. Main Street's above it, but we still have that right-of-way below it. So the landscaping has been improved. We have an 8-foot separation between the buildings, so we've got a little bit of landscaping. As I said, the dumpster went away. And then one other thing that we discovered during the engineering is tying into the existing systems. I know the city is always looking for ways to improve its overall infrastructure. Initially, we were tapping into the structure, but we weren't proposing any main changes. It seemed because of sizing issues and just the quality of the infrastructure in front there, we're now proposing as part of our project to replace 182 foot of water main along diversion right along the curve there. So obviously we'll work with the city and with the DPW, but there'll be a new improvement to the infrastructure of the city of 182 foot of water main. So those are our proposed amendments. Again, if you squint your eyes, in fact, even if you keep your eyes wide open, it's going to look very much the same. It's just a little more detailed and a little closer to completion. We're at the point now where we're finishing our construction drawings, submitting for engineering. If we are able to move quickly and get through all the check marks here, both here and at Eagle, our goal would be ideally to start land clearing and development even this fall. So,
Thank you, Jim.
thanks, Mr. Gaston.
Commissioners, anything you didn't hear that you wanted to hear, or any questions you have?
One quick question.
Commissioner Hauser?
Thank you. Thank you for the update, and I appreciate very much providing us the distinctions from what was initially brought before us and what you are proposing now. My only question is, because of the tie-in to the preserves next door, because of this easement and the property transfer, you just alluded to the fact that construction may start in the fall for this project. What is the timeline for construction on the preserves? Because if this goes through, the property's going to have to be changed, and I'm presuming you're going to want to start on that one soon, too. So I'm just thinking from a constructability timeline, what is your ETA on that one?
They've always been anticipated to be constructed separately, and if you remember right, we do have kind of a road easement that goes in, so that changing that 1.5 or 2 feet really won't impact the preserves at all from a, boy, now we've got to move a building or move a parking lot. Everything will remain the same there. The preserves has a larger floodplain issue because it's closer to the river, so that permitting is taking longer. Honestly, we focused on 210 initially because we knew that all the permits and everything were a little easier to come along. So as soon as we start construction here, we'll turn our attention to that floodplain. That'll realistically probably take 12 months to get those permits from Eagle. So kind of talking out loud without really getting commitments from Joe, we're probably 18 months or 24 months before that would start. So this building will be just about done as we then move right into the preserves.
Okay, so 2 years roughly for this one, and then +2 for that one, so about.
Is that fair to say, Joe?
No, this one would be this fall and then 2 years for.
2 years, right.
The preserves would probably be
Can-
2 years before we start that.
2 years from this fall would be, yeah, so it's essentially,
So about 4.5 years,
Yeah.
okay. Total, from start to finish for both jobs to be done.
assuming everything goes
That's
correct, yeah, I
fine.
think
Okay.
that's right.
That's helpful, thank you.
Others? Mr. Mayor, Ms. Mayor?
Thank you, thank you. Just a clarification, understanding that the trash removal is now inside the building. So when the hauler comes in, will they have to back out, or is there room in the parking lot for them to turn around?
There's a diagram, that's an important question, and one we wanted to make sure we did right. Fire trucks, we assume, will, hopefully never come, but if they do for an emergency, they'll come in and likely back out. We recognize that the trash hauler may come multiple times a week, and so we didn't want them to back out. So we included a diagram in your packet where a trash hauler will come in, the operator will get out, empty that trash, put it back in. They'll pull forward into the end of the parking lot and then kind of back into the opening for the garage, essentially a 3-point turn, and then pull out straight so they won't be backing into the street.
Okay, thank you.
Great question. Anything more before I open the public hearing?
I have one question. I don't know the state of all the water mains in the city, but I know that's can be a costly thing when they need to be replaced. So thank you for including that in your project. At the conclusion of that, it will be the city's water main. Is that how that
Yes.
works? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we'll follow all your ordinances, and frankly, Nick or Jeremy, I'm not even sure if we physically do that work or just contract you, but it is the city's, yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Clauser, since I already put you on the spot for Ms. Murphy, did you have any comment?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, 7:24, we're going to open the public hearing. Again, if anyone would like to make a comment or ask a question, please approach the podium, state your name and address. Everyone's happy? Rose, anybody online?
No one's online.
Okay. 7:24, we close the public hearing. Back to the commission. Any more discussion? Questions of administration, how they'll deal with the transfer? Okay, I'll welcome a motion.
Sure. I will make a motion to approve the amended special project site plan for the subject site located at 210 Diversion, subject to the 4 conditions that are provided for in our packet. If you need me to articulate those, I
No,
certainly will.
they're here.
Okay.
I'm fine with that. Question on the motion?
No, I can support that motion. I think this is an improved project. I think residents are going to enjoy living on those bigger balconies. And so I appreciate all the extra effort going through to make this a better project. So I know it's time and money, and I appreciate that.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Hauser and support by the mayor. Any questions on that? Okay, roll call.
Gasson,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Bachman,
Yes.
Clauser,
Yes.
Hardin,
Yes.
Kenjuk,
Yes.
Murphy.
Excellent. Thank you very much to the
Appreciate
team.
your time, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
We have a public hearing now for 125 South Main Street, but before we get into that, it pertains to parking. And in our last meeting, there was discussion about having the parking committee come visit with us and share some thoughts and vision of what's going on. And the mayor would like to do a little bit of an update before we get into this. I know it's not on the agenda, but it's pertaining to, leads into that item.
Thank you. And Commissioner Stone is also on the parking committee. He was at the meeting. So just wanted to give an update. I gave a little bit of an update at City Council because we had some parking items. So for planning commissioners, you have in front of you the updated parking budget. This is revenues and expenses through fiscal year end, as well as a report showing the parking in lieu. And Jeremy Pickens can speak to a little bit more on that process, but we did talk about this at the parking meeting. Meeting was held on June 10th. Talked through a number of things, initiatives that have been completed in terms of a business owner presentation. City Council approved a ticket validation discount. So if you own a business in downtown, you can get a group of parking prepaid passes at a discounted rate. That has been approved. We've made improvements to the parking website. We've introduced a grace period on the parking meters. So breaking news, you got 10 minutes of grace time on your parking meters. We talked about EV parking in the city. We talked about adding a part-time parking enforcement officer. This was approved by the PAC. City Council asked to reconsider it. And my understanding is that administration is now looking at a different way to address what I will call uptime in the system. I think in general, we want a high-quality parking system, not one that produces perhaps the most revenue, but one that is high quality. You know, quality surface lots, structures that work, structures that are well-maintained. And so we've had some issues with our parking meters not functioning as often as we would like them. If you have to pay for parking, you want it to work, right? So in general, those were some of the topics. Another one that is still being worked through is what I'm calling an audit of the parking system. Some of our business owners want us to take a look at, where we have permit parking, where we have employees to park, where we have metered parking. As we have changes in the businesses, does it make sense to evaluate and look and see at our parking system overall? So to me, I think this is something we should look at annually, and it should give us a bit more information from a planning commission standpoint in terms of capacity and where are we at, just that annual check. So just some updates from the parking committee meeting. We will be having another meeting, Nick, when do you think? In about a month or so? Yep.
Thank you, Mayor Sylvia.
One last comment on the budget information. So basically, the parking system is about $2 million to run per year, and we bring in a little over $2 million. So it's a little over break even, but some of that break even revenue comes from budget dollars from the DDA. So DDA tax capture goes to pay. In general, our process has been, we want a break-even system, so those who are using or benefiting from the parking are paying for it. What is not included in those numbers is future technology. What else are we going to need in the future? So to me, that is something that we have to work on. And then last really cool thing that I want to talk about as it relates to parking is we are studying using QR codes. So there's a sign that has a QR code, you put your phone on it, you put your license plate in and you pay. A lot less maintenance than meters or a structure. So we're always looking to improve our parking system. That's all.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to move into the next public hearing. It's a consideration of 125 South Main Street. As the lead-in was, it's a special exception for payment in lieu of parking. So, or is administration? Thank you very much.
So, good evening, Commission. 125 South Main Street, he had came here last month to ask for this public hearing. They were grandfathered in for, they were parking this, the property was credited for 8 spaces, but asking for 7 more, to change this over from a Kumon space to a new coffee shop. So they're not doing any facade changes, anything like that. It's just straight payment in lieu of parking. I can go into that second portion that is the Excel spreadsheet that I put out on your desk beforehand. So this is a total amount of payment in lieu requests that we've gotten since we started doing this in 2019. During 2019 and before that, it was a much larger sum of money. I think it started at $12,000, and then we reduced that to $19,000, or in 2018, reduced it to $7,500, and then reduced it again in 2023 to $1,000. So as of now, there's only two properties that are doing the payment plan. That would be two Relus 6 years in, and then the Roxy is 2 years in out of their 10. And the only other one that has not paid yet is 339 East Street, which you would know as the former Moon River. They got approved last year, or earlier this year. They don't need to pay that until they want to get their C of O. So a lot of these, or that's what we hold when they need to pay it. That's kind of our teeth to keep them from just opening up without us getting our money. So they have plenty of time to do that. They could get their C of O, or they could pay it when they submit building plans. They could wait till the building's paid for it, and then they have a tenant, and then they can get it paid then. So we have flags in our system to make sure that they don't open without them paying that bill. But so not including the two partial payments that are in, that's 122 spaces given, not including Paolo's or 339 East. But that is $265,000 that goes right back into the payment of the parking funding. So 220 has been given and paid for, at least mostly, other than the two that are partial. But the on-payment plans are in good standing, so I'm counting those in as that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
No,
Okay.
you did not. I was gonna say if anybody has any questions, I can try to answer.
I'll do that. Anyone have any question for administration?
Sure.
Commissioner Hauser?
And Jeremy, we talked about this at the last meeting, and I think, there's another line item for parking in lieu for the development on Main Street, and I think it would be helpful, to me, and I think it's a rather simple equation, it's just about capacity. Do we have it or do we not? And I think if we're presented in future packets with, here's the capacity, here's what's being used, here's what's not being used, in the decks, and remember, we've done this before. Yeah. To me, I think that helps, at least for me, the analysis to say, okay, based on the figures that you presented, I can give an up or down immediately right here. And I think that would expedite some of this a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And it should be included in, I believe it's the last page of the packet, or it's either that one or behind the next agenda item. Because it's the same chart that we did a few months ago. And that will be consistent whenever we ask for parking. We'll do that 2 month, or 2 week study prior to, and give you those updated numbers for corresponding lots that are adjacent to the property. That would be the most ideal place for people to park.
Right.
Yep.
This was on the last one, though, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, correct.
So for the one that we've got coming up on Main Street for D'Amato's, because they want 23, to have an updated for June or something like that, that would be really helpful, just so we can have the most current information when we make that decision.
Yep.
I think it would be incredibly efficient.
Yep, I think the DeMarco's was included in that one, but we can get updated numbers for sure.
All right, because if it was, I didn't see it, and that goes to another question about the packet,
Mm-hmm.
but we'll get to that later. But nevertheless, that's fine. Thank you very much, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Any other questions for administration?
I just have a comment.
Yes.
I know I've been very vocal on the payment in lieu of parking. They come to us very frequently, and in strategy, I feel like it's not only planning for the future, but also looking at what are signals coming at us now so we can be proactive. And to me, this is a signal for getting it frequently. And so I've asked for data and facts and information to support our decisions. I agree with Commissioner Hauser from what you guys have presented and from my own personal experience downtown. It doesn't feel like we're at capacity. But continuing to get these numbers, this data from you guys is so important, and I appreciate all the work that went into this and the report from Mayor Salvia too, because, again, how can we be proactive? How can we make sure we're getting ahead of this? And this is how we do it, with the data and evidence. So thank you guys for putting this all together. And I'm sure I'll have questions after I get time to look at what we were given.
Thank you. There's none other, we're going to open the public hearing. It's at 7:35. Hearing now open. Anyone in the audience like to speak to this? No? Okay. Rose, anybody online?
No one's online.
Excellent. We'll close the public hearing at 7:35. Back to the commissioners. Any thoughts or a direction to move in? Yes, Ms. Mayor.
So is the request before us to approve payment of what? What is the request tonight?
8 spaces.
So a payment for 8 spaces?
Yeah, the space is credited, one space for 3,000, or 300, or 8 spaces total.
So the request of the commission is to allow for payment for parking in lieu for 8 spaces, so $8,000 to be paid before certificate of occupancy.
I'm sorry, I misspoke, it's 7 spaces.
7
Yeah.
spaces.
8
This is
spaces.
why I always ask, because I feel like we're always making sure we got the right numbers
It's
here.
always so close, yeah.
8 credit, 7 spaces. So I will make that motion to approve that.
Okay, we have a motion by the mayor to approve as requested. Support questions? Support by Commissioner Bachmann. Any questions on the motions? Okay, we'll call roll.
Gasson,
Here, yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Bachman,
Yes.
Klauser,
Yes.
Hardin,
Yes.
Kenjuk,
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close, already did, I'm going to go to consideration. So we have several of those tonight. The first is consideration of 401 South Main Street. It's a facade change essentially with site plan for a second-story addition to a current property. I'm going to turn it over to you, John.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you again. The applicant is requesting approval of a site plan, or actually, it's preliminary review, so they're asking you to set the public hearing for consideration of their site plan, which includes the addition of a partial second floor on the rear half of the building away from Main Street. Vidya has provided a detailed report, and I'll try to hit the highlights here. So first of all, the addition, of course, includes partial interior seating as well as some exterior seating. The indoor seating is going to require additional parking, which they are requesting payment in lieu of that indoor parking requirement. I thought that should hit that based on your last conversation there. The outdoor seating is exempt from the parking requirement, so they will be back requesting the payment in lieu of. The city engineers indicated that if they don't already have a grease oil separator, they need to provide one. So that would be a good question to get clarification from the applicant tonight. There's some additional lighting on the rear of the building near the alley. 3 additional gooseneck fixtures are going to be added. Vidya spent a lot of time talking about the architecture here. When this building was originally approved, it was a entirely black facade. As she points out, the city's architectural guidelines talk about compatibility with other buildings in the downtown, in particular with respect towards the traditional style of architecture in the downtown. Again, she pointed out that the 1-story black building was originally approved. She draws attention to the fact that adding a second story that's also entirely black may come across as more modern or contemporary, more massive. And so she definitely wanted the Planning Commission to consider if that is truly consistent with the intent of the design guidelines. She did point out that in the rendering, and you can probably see this in the rendering, it almost looks like the body of the building is a more bronze type color, and the coping and so forth are true black. So she does point out that they may have modified it since the original submission to soften the darkness there. But she definitely wanted the Planning Commission to be comfortable with the proposed design to make sure it was consistent with the intent. The other thing that she pointed out is there's a lot of things moving around on the roof with respect to the HVAC, part of which is going to end up on the top of the new addition. And she points out the building heights here. It's going to, the screening that's going to be around that is going to extend up to 32, a little bit over 32.5 feet. It's going to be constructed of metal paneling, basically to screen that second story mechanical equipment. And she points out that while the ordinance specifically says we don't want to see wood, metal, or other type of fencing around the mechanical equipment, she said by utilizing material that's comparable to what's being used in the building itself, it comes across as an extension of the building. So she felt that the use of that metal paneling for screening was appropriate. She did ask to see in, when it comes back to you the next time, when they submit their next round of plans, that they show where exactly the HVAC units are going to be. If they could show that in the three-dimensional drawings, that would be helpful, so we can kind of get a feel for what the impact of that is going to be. She also brought up the landscaping that was shown on the originally approved plans back in, I believe it was 2017. So she's asked for them to explain if there's basically going to be any additional landscaping on the roof. Potato vines, as I know them, are an annual, and so I don't think that was supposed to be like a perennial vine that was on there at all times. But if they could explain what their plans are for any rooftop or landscaping that may soften, especially the rear facade, that would be helpful. And also if they could provide some clarification on whether or not there's going to be any other signage. So basically those are Vidya's observations, and her recommendation is that this is ready to be scheduled for the next available agenda for consideration.
Thank you, John, appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman,
Nick's
if
got
I
it.
Yes.
might just add a little bit. So when we first met with Mark, when we were trying to calculate the extra parking that would be needed, we told him how sensitive that is. And so I'm going to ask him to go over the conversation that we had. 23 is a big ask. We don't have, that's not a little ask, that's a large ask. That west deck is pretty used. If the Chapman house ever opens again, there's going to be a lot of pressure there. We know the lot by the brunch house gets less use in the evening. It's a little bit of a block walk. But when we talked about what's the concept here. And he talked about DeMarco's timing during the year when they're more used. When is the tequila and taco bar used? They have different schedules. He has a set of employees that he's trying to keep fully employed at all times. And by what he's going to add on the second floor, it's kind of, that's a little busier and smaller than when the big DeMarco's isn't used. So, Mark, when you get up here, if you could talk about that. That helped us not feel so uncomfortable with 23. That's a big number. So I want you to know that we took that seriously, and we thought, let's see if we can come to a compromise. He certainly doesn't want to open a restaurant with no parking for blocks, right? So if you don't mind, when he comes up, if he could address that, I think that would be helpful.
Thank you, I appreciate that addition there. So we're at that point where I'm going to ask the applicant if he could come up and add in anything that maybe might enhance what we've already heard. And we'll
Hi, everyone, I'm Mark. And
Mark, can you state your last name?
My
and
name is
address?
Mark Mendola. So I own DeMarco's and the Backdoor Taco Tequila Bar. I also own the building and purchased that in 2016. I'm with Roger, who's going to take us through the designs and the architecture and respond to all the comments. On a personal level, I just want to let you know that I've been looking to invest and be part of the Rochester community for a long time. So I graduated from Oakland University. Should have graduated in '85. It took me a little bit longer. And I have a full-time job. I live and work in New York, as well as own a restaurant, and very busy doing the restaurant activity. It's my passion. My family's own restaurants in Pennsylvania, Italian restaurants. I own a tequila bar, and that is my heart and that's my passion. I'm very proud to own DeMarco's on the corner of 4th and Main. I do everything I can to make the city proud of my business. And my wife sometimes complains I'm there too often, but it's my passion, my commitment. And all I want to do is make it even better. And so before I bring Roger up, I wanted to applaud the city and Nick. We've known for each other for a long, long time. Quickly, the whole principle is that not many people are coming to an Italian restaurant that have heavy lasagna during the summertime. Our tequila bar, which is 44 seats, is just a constant. It's like an annuity. So we make X every week, whether it's sunny, rainy, it's just X. And it's a limited restaurant, so we can always count on that. But DeMarco's sales and revenue, no different than most restaurants and businesses, are principally winter-driven because of the great work of the DDA and the city supporting the lights. I'm blessed to have the tree on my roof. We get a lot of crowds, and it's just a magical time of year. As a side note, we're trying to recruit my son's girlfriend to live here. I showed her if she lives here, she can see the lights on my building. So it's something that we're very proud of. But knowing that, and because I'm an employer of 50 people, I want to make sure, as Nick said, that I give everyone the opportunity to grow, professionalize, and I also am a mentor to many people at the restaurant. So the concept would be, as DeMarco's is softer during wintertime, softer during the summertime, we would have our rooftop restaurant. And that way we're able to deploy people upstairs, give people and broaden themselves some more management experience. And we have a different segmentation, perhaps even new customers coming into Rochester because of how beautiful it is. And I keep DeMarco's running, of course, but likely we'll be busier on the roof. And I'm spending a lot of money to make that happen. I own the building. I want to make sure that it's a 3-restaurant concept within one building. But what I think the more important thing, Nick, is that although we're hoping that we're bustling and busy year-round, we are not. And during the summertime, DeMarco's a little bit slow, and I think the rooftop will pick it up. Overall, we'll even it out. And I don't know the data and the stats on the parking decks. I can assure you, for all the times I'm here, I'm always like the first one in around 6 a.m. I have the main floor spot, and I don't see it overly busy. And I agree with Nick, though, if those special event times and certainly during the holiday lights, they do get busy. So I'm willing to do whatever it takes for your support, including purchasing the 23 in lieu of. And anything else I can do, I'll leave it over to Roger. I'm happy to answer any questions. Okay?
Thank you very much,
Yeah,
Mark.
you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Roger Young, representing Young & Young Architects. Mark retained us to look at the existing building and devise a concept for a restaurant on the rooftop on the westerly side of the building. We've been enjoying just the opportunity to do something creative and special and timeless. It's really what our firm is about. We're a family firm, 3 generations. We believe that the quality of thought and attention to details is what makes us successful. And we met with Nick and Jeremy early in March and just presented the concept and received support and just said, yeah, you guys, it sounds like a good concept. Let's go to the next level. And so we're privileged to be in front of you this evening to present this project. I don't know if it's necessary to pull up anything on.
If you have it.
Do I have it?
It would be good for the
Yeah,
audience.
it would be.
Is it on file, Chairman?
While they're doing that, Mark, you have to hear this story about the
This is like,
This is the best story.
so, quickly, I'm very proud of the DNC heritage. Dancer and Cower, 1926 is when it first opened in Main Street. In fact, just a week ago, it would have opened at my building in 1940. So I think it was June 26. It switched from 1926 to 1940, Dancer and Cower, and that survived for 40, 50 plus years. I'm going to give this story to the side, which is a great story. From there, it went to America's Pizza Cafe, owned by the Illich family, and then Joe owned it for Ramos, and then Dan and Joe did Rojo. There was an original building owner. He had the and I purchased it from that original building. The story is, while we're looking at the files, is a lady tapped me on the shoulder while I was at my restaurant, a little bit elderly lady, and she said, "Are you the manager of the restaurant?" I said, "I am. How can I help you?" She said, "Well, if there's any chance, can you ask the owner if he could come over and speak to me?" I go, "Matter of fact, I am." She was, "My husband was the manager of the DNC the day that it closed. And I have the DNC sign in my garage. And if you're willing to come and clean my garage, you can have this sign." So I should have asked to see her garage. So I went over to her house. To say it wasn't clean in 40 years is an understatement. But I ended up getting the signs, cleaned her garage very nicely, I might add. And we're going to use that sign within our building. So we're going to show it in a very gracefully way. But that's what I want to bring back. It's an evolution of where that building once was. So sorry about that. It's a good story.
Thank you, Ben. One of the questions asked by the planners was signage. The DNC sign that Mark is going to reuse is actually going to be located on the westerly side of the building, and I'll show you in the renderings as we move through the presentation where that is. It's not on the exterior of the building. It's within the glazed area of the building. So just for reference, and I'll go through these slides. This is Main Street. This is 4th to the south of the building. The gray area is the location of the second-story rooftop addition. The questions of rooftop mechanicals, which were brought up and important, what we show are the existing rooftop mechanicals, and then what we've done, and this is all using existing equipment sizes, and having preliminary conversations with the general contractor and his subs, what we can do and where these can be relocated. And they will be on the roof of the new second-story addition and screened by the same building material facade that's used on the primary facade of the second-story addition will be used to screen the mechanicals. So we thought that was important for safety, consistency of materials and quality of the presence of the building to continue that on the rooftop. These 3D views show this is looking primarily to the north, kind of northeast and kind of northwest in this orientation. You can see the existing one-story and awnings along 4th and Main to our right here, and then this is the new rooftop addition, which does contain just under 1,400 square feet of interior space and just under 600 feet of exterior seating. And then this little portion right over here is just additional storage for tables and equipment to serve the activities of the upper level. The upper level is accessed by a door that exists on the alley on the west side of the building. It's one point of entry. The existing DeMarco's restaurant has a wine feature. That wine feature is going to be removed, and then a beautiful stairway is proposed to bring the patrons of the restaurant up to the DeMarco's, as well as staff stair and an elevator. So this is entirely accessible for the guests, and there will be some modifications required to DeMarco's to make these improvements, but we think we have all the real issues, how it affects the restaurant, and ideally not closing the restaurant during this construction. That was important to Mark. On the main floor, this area in the shaded area, this is the existing DeMarco's restaurant. This is the washrooms are here, and the tequila bar to the west and south. And then this is the access from the alley on the westerly side of the portion with direct access up. And then elevator, and then modifications to the dishwashing and storage areas and coolers that service the restaurant will occur during this proposed construction on the main level. On the upper level, I'll put this up a little bit higher. Since the rooftop equipment is important, what we've done is we've shown consolidating the equipment to the greatest extent possible and locating it where it makes sense for the duct runs and performance of the equipment. And this line that you see here is the screening on all four sides of the mechanical equipment. This area here is just a little impression for the elevator, which does extend just a little bit above the roof deck. And you can see the outdoor seating on the southerly side of the building. And then this is the plan of the upper floor. So bar, elevator access, washroom facility, outdoor seating here, and then the stair down to the tequila bar and DeMarco's in this area. And then this portion over here to the right is our storage, and then the kitchen and support area behind. So it's a real efficient layout. It's laid out to serve as a self-standing restaurant in and of itself, but it will be serviced and supported by DeMarco's and other, in the lower level of the building, other equipment that would be down there for additional day-to-day needs for the restaurant operations. The elevation, and this is important, when we looked at the existing DeMarco's building and what was once DNC, we really found that the porcelain panels that you can see existing that are painted, are charcoal color, were part of that facade that is found in a lot of actually older buildings, but it was also found in some of the buildings in Rochester. And these metal panels that we're proposing are not meant to replicate, but as an ode to that. And so we thought that it was important to continue that architecture on the main facade of the building. And this process, I'll show you, it's more clearly defined in the renderings. But this area here and here are the primary building materials, with the exception of the glass. These are all retractable glass, Nana, if you will, type doors that open up so that the outdoor can be brought inside during the warmer months, and the glass guardrail to protect the guest when they're on the upper balcony. These are views of the existing building, and in this location, this is where the proposed second story would be on the parking structure side, the westerly side of the building. This is looking east from the alley, and this is important. This is the door, new door with side light and glass for an entrance up to the DNC rooftop. This glass wall here, and again it'll show better depicted in the renders, is where Mark is proposing to use the original DNC letters. They're in the stairwell leading up to the second floor. And then these are the renderings. And the renderings, the tough thing, it's when rendering, it's depending on where you put the light in the renderings, the facade can appear darker or lighter, and Vidya brought that up from McKenna during her plan review. But the color scheme is to match the existing main level, which is like a charcoal or graphite color, and the black accent would pick up on the black lettering of the existing DeMarco's sign that's at the intersection of 4th and Main. There are no awnings proposed. There's a covered area, that the interior ceiling, which is proposed to be wood stained in I'll say medium oak color. You'll be able to see that softer color, and Mark has also sent us some inspiration photos of restaurants and rooftop restaurants he's been in while practicing in New York, that you'll see the greenery or lattice with interior plant materials. So it wants to be an open, lively, airy outdoor experience. But there'll be peaks, if you will, from the citizens in the community being able to look up, see what's happening out there. We left the building as low as it could be to comply with the height requirements for the city. And as brought up, we do peak, 30 foot is the max. We're just under 28, but with the rooftop, we're at 32. So the building complies, but the mechanical equipment, which is within the requirements of rooftop mechanicals, they do stick up just 2.5 feet above the building height. And we're not trying to feature them, but we thought it was important not to use, I'll say, typical commercial rooftop screening, that Mark's wanted to invest in making that facade as beautiful as the building for what might be visible. And in this rendering, you can see this is looking east from the alley. This is where the DNC signage would occur. the planners asked just to show height comparisons with adjacent buildings, to show its relationship and compatibility. And the primary massing of this addition is pushed away from the street side. Mark thought that was important, and it gives the building just a nice presence from all sides, but it's really, we're not changing the elevation along Main Street. This is existing DeMarco's, and this is looking due west from the intersection, and you can see the second story further down 4th Street. Again, another view just for perspective. And in this bird's eye perspective, you can see this is trying to be as modest, yet as sympathetic to the building as possible. And this is looking due north from 4th. This is the entrance into the tequila bar. That's from another perspective looking northeast. And then looking north. So here you can see the DNC in this rendering barely coming through the glass. Signage at this time is still to be determined. We wanted to do something to identify that this is a means of entry into the building, but how we do that or how subtle it is or diminutive, that would be something that would present at a future for the Plan Commission. And here you can see the DNC. This is looking south from the alley. So other things that were brought up in the plan reviewers' comments, trash removal, and presently DeMarco's is using a mobile trash container and taking it to the north where there's an existing dumpster. So we have trash facility within the building. As the need presents itself, that cart is then taken out and the waste disposed of. So it's basically status quo. Additional lighting, there's presently wall packs or service lights on the back side of the building that are not aesthetically pleasing but very functional. These are to be replaced in the alley side with a gooseneck style fixture, which is similar to what exists on the building presently. Let's see what other kind of goodies we have. That's it. That's it. Okay, that's it. Okay, so.
We could spend all night on this if you wanted.
But I'm happy to answer any questions you have about architecture, planning, day-to-day operations. Mark can answer those for you, but pretty wish to be able to see them.
Roger, could you speak to some of the comments regarding plantings in the findings?
That was brought up, and that was, we were unaware of that. I think perhaps in the original DeMarco's, the former architect had suggested using some annual potato vines that kind of soften, perhaps, or add some interest to the building.
Yeah, can I just help? So that our original, where we put in it's a 10-foot, is it okay if I speak from here?
It'd be better, the mic,
Okay.
please. Thank you.
Just real quickly, when we originally went for the sign at DeMarco's, which was done by Rochester Sign Shop, it was a curvature 10-foot, and I don't recall the issue, but there was a discussion. Somebody suggested that we put like it was a potato greenery over the roof. Either I forgot about it, or I don't know why we would do that. And it never took hold. So that was why that was originally an original submission. It would probably die under my care.
Thank you, Mark. Is there any consideration to do something perhaps different, not just follow up what was planned previously?
There are no landscaping plans for the building at this time.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I throw one more? In our initial discussion, it was easy for Mark to come in and say, I'm going to push this building to the front, the addition to the front, because I can see the lights, I can market it better. But just that little bit of scale on Main Street kind of threw off the balance of that block. So he came in originally with that, and we sat down and talked about it, and he said, no, I'm going to respect that, and he pushed it back, which I think was very admirable. It would have been easy to do it the other way. And the fact that you can see from the ground up and see things going on, even in the back, I think that's going to be pretty cool. So we appreciated that.
I do too. Could you answer one other question? I don't know if it's for Roger or Mark. But do these function as separate entities? Are we to perceive this as a part of the big picture, or is it its own thing?
Yeah, so,
Maybe from business and how it presents itself.
yeah, so legally, it's one legal entity, it's a single member LLC. Each restaurant is a DBA.
Okay.
So it will be, it will have its own kitchen, it will have its own staff, and general manager and all that stuff, but we will rotate staff throughout, so they're employees of my LLC. But it's meant to operate on its own.
Okay,
Okay. Yeah.
thank you. The reason I ask is to look at it as a site plan. I'm focusing only on this new element.
Yeah.
And it was unclear to me initially when I reviewed it as how do you get in?
Yeah.
Do I find a door that goes right to it, which I did?
Yeah.
Or is there some kind of commonality of circulation, particularly for the vertical thing? It's only, the elevator's only there because of it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, the elevator's there for ADA compliance.
So, and that's my site plan purview, is I'm not looking at the building inside, I'm looking at how do I get to this new entity? So I have to go into the building, in the elevator, so I'm somewhat peeking inside the door from a site plan review, not like I would normally do, look at it from the outside and stop at the door.
Well,
But we can't do that in this case.
yeah, to be fair, I was less than pleased when Nick twisted my arm to push it to the rear of the building. Huh?
I thought you volunteered.
No, you both, so there is a concern of visibility, right? Hence, that's why I want the parking lot to be filled, because people will see it. But when you're walking on 4th Street, right, you have to look up to see it. But if you're outside of 4th Street, you can see it and it needs to be visible. So we'll do all the appropriate things. But the entrance from the rear is the primary way to get in. However, we have people with our tequila bar come in through DeMarco's front door, and we have a natural walkway to bring them there. We have people from the tequila bar, I don't know why, they go to DeMarco's.
Because the food's good.
Lost. What I chose to do as an investment is put a staircase in the middle of the restaurant so that you could go up interiorly into the DNC rooftop that way as well. So outside from the alley and then inside up. But at a later date, we would like the opportunity to talk about some level of signage. I know like 423 Main just put a little something like we have with the back door. Yeah, so the plan would be that this would be this is not a bar. This is what I would say, I'm trying to meet a niche where we're certainly gonna have some quality smash burgers and all that stuff, but like protein bowls, hummus. My wife will be very involved in making sure things are healthy, but it's not meant to compete against Rochester Corner or 423 Main. It should be a family environment, and certainly it could be date night, but we're gonna have different cuisines than Italian, and certainly different cuisines than Mexican. Okay,
Thank you.
simple menu too.
Anything further, Roger? You might want to stay close for questions. Pardon?
Do you have any additional questions?
I'm sure we will.
Okay.
But if you're essentially done with your part, just stay by and we'll
Thank you all.
come back as needed. Okay, commissioners, what a lot of information there.
I'll start.
Sure do, right then.
I have a question for the applicant and one that's also probably for Mr. Banda. Start with the question about parking. They're going to have 26 outdoor seats, and that's exempt from parking. But if I'm not mistaken, in years past, the restaurant has had outdoor seating right there on the street. Never happened?
Yeah, yeah.
Our platform.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So I guess my question is, if they decide to do that in the future, the platform
We will not.
seating, okay, but procedurally, if they do decide to do that, will that be, the number of seats in the platform plus the outdoor seating be taken into consideration as a whole?
Yes, so I think that was part of the concept. When the DDA annually looked at each platform, it's like, we'd rather not put them out there if you're not going to use them. And Mark voluntarily, knowing this was coming and that question was going to ask, said, I'll pass. It's a tough walk across the sidewalk, so, but it would count as additional seating, so, and taking away prime parking spots too. So we would anticipate, it could be a condition of the planning commission to say that you would not in the future support a platform in the parking adjacent to it. That would be a fair condition. I don't think he would have any problem with that.
Because how many seats did those platforms hold?
You remember how many chairs you
We had
10 or
4 or 5
Yeah,
tables?
we were able to get 16 people, but as gracious as it just wasn't the right thing for us.
Okay, but if them or their successor, if that were to ever to happen, that's potentially 42 temporary spots. That, I think, is a little bit more than normal, and that could put a little more stress on the parking system. So I don't know if it's up to me to make the recommendation, but maybe we should make that a condition, that platform seating is not allowed.
Certainly sounds fair to me,
Okay.
to the system.
My second question for the applicant is that, personally, I like the addition to the building. I think it makes it look better than before, but I'm also concerned about how well it fits within the architecture of the rest of the downtown. I was pleasantly surprised to hear about the panels. I didn't catch that when I reviewed it, but as I look at the renderings, you really can't see those panels, the ones that you said were going to be like an ode to the past. Are they going to be will they blend in so well that you really won't notice them, or is there going to be like maybe a variation in color that offsets the panels from the rest of the building?
So the panels themselves are the same module that exists on the existing building. The size of the panels is the same. The main distinction is the porcelain panels are, the joints are tight and there's just like a small gasket, if you will, in between them. These panels are flush on the facade, but there is a half-inch by half-inch reveal, so you can see each individual panel expressed on its own. So you see that grid. It's muddy in the renderings, and forgive me for that, but there is a rhythm, and it's expressed in the middle panel, so it's not one uniform facade.
Roger, if you could scroll that to the elevations, I think it shows it better in our packet in the elevation form. It was colored, I thought, colored elevations. Yeah. It kind of fades out here.
Well, my point is, or what I'm leading up to, is if there was,
I see a little bit better.
This
yes.
is the existing below and behind the awnings,
Mhm.
and then the rhythm continues up to essentially follow the same module of the existing porcelain panels.
Just a suggestion is maybe, right now, those colors are very similar. In fact, I would have never known those panels are there in the current situation. Maybe if there was a little contrast in color, that might soften it a little bit so that it's not as contemporary looking as it is now.
We're certainly open to that, and looking at colors that are just harmonious and appropriate. Definitely. The renderings, they can work against you sometimes, but we'll definitely be respectful of and provide the city with colors once we get to that point, show you what those want to be. Because there'll be a custom color made specifically for this project.
Okay. That's all.
Thank you. Others?
I do.
Ms. Mayor?
Yes, thank you. First off, I just want to thank you for the high-quality construction and what you've put into this property. It's beautiful. You've done a great job with this property, and I was really happy to see the D&C on the back. I noticed it in the package. I thought, thank you. You're recognizing our history, and quite honestly, that's smart. If this gets to open, our residents love our history, so that'll be a draw. So my question is, and I love it on the back side of the property. I was very nervous when Nick started talking about this. I thought, we don't want massing on Main Street. Fourth is a really charming street as well. We do a lot of outdoor activities there. This could be really cool. So what I'm hearing and concerned about is the mechanical equipment on the roof. And your elevation drawing doesn't look enough to the north to 423 Main, which is your neighbor that has a rooftop. So I'd like to see how that elevation compares. So if you're on 423's rooftop and you look over to your neighbor, what am I seeing?
Yeah, we can do that. Sure. I don't think, Nick, you can help me, I don't think it's visible.
Yeah, they have a hard wall on one side, but we can,
I think it is hard, but
Yeah.
looking at this and
Yeah.
thinking about it,
yeah.
I just would like to see how that looks.
Sure, because I know when I've been on my roof, I can't see that,
Right,
but we're happy to figure that out. Yeah,
that can be rendered.
I'm not sure I know why. It's the old Mr. V, so the one to.
Right, so they have outdoor dining in the back that would be equal to your back of your building.
Oh, yeah.
So it'll be easier.
We can't see
And
each
it
other.
might be bookends. They might look
Exactly.
very nice, but
Yeah.
you stop at 417.
Okay, yeah. We're happy to provide that. Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Others?
I have a.
Commissioner Clauser?
Yeah, a couple of things. The signage that you mentioned, out of curiosity, when you're looking northeast, there is kind of that dark, like a wall, if you will, at the far end. Why couldn't you put a DNC on there or something to just break it up and add some character? It's not, it wouldn't be protruding, I'm talking about like, kind of like you have on the interior, just a suggestion. I like the idea too of the greenery. It just, again, looking at it, looks very modern, very dark, and if there's stuff to break that up and lighten it up, I think that would be a nice addition. And then I just have a couple questions. It's actually probably for Nick or Jeremy, but just to confirm, rooftop dining and bar service, that's permitted in the general business, it's not special exception?
Right.
And then do you anticipate that this is going to set a precedent, or we might get other requests for second-story uses downtown like this?
If I may, Mr. Chairman. So I think it could. It seems like everybody that purchases something, let's get out of the bag here, or Hermitage Galleries, for instance, this time the going out of business sign is for real. So,
Promise.
I promise.
it's been a couple decades, but,
Yeah.
and the people that bought it at first talked about adding a second story. I think 423 has worked out well. I think meeting houses, outside dining, I think it's good, it feels good.
Yeah.
4th Street, the mayor's right, very popular right there. I think it doesn't necessarily precedent, I think the precedent is set. I think who can take an opportunity for it? There's not a good spot on all of them, but certainly even at, the bar that was just approved,
Across the street.
Oh,
yes, 406.
Six-story building.
So that he was talking about it, but it doesn't fit there because he's got walls on both sides of him, right? So this is an open end, kind of like 423, or, yeah, the 423 bar. It's open to the.
Meeting
north,
house.
to the west, and the meeting house is certainly open. So I think
That makes
there'll be situations, but not a whole lot more opportunities, quite frankly, when we looked at them.
Okay, and the reason I was asking is noise, community impact, and do we need to proactively, if we don't already have something, establish a framework for these outdoor uses or rooftop uses with
Yep.
height limits, sound controls, hours of operation, things like that?
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, again, great question. So when we went through the Chapman House, for those that were here, they went through a $100,000, literally, engineering study to have these sound engineers come in from Switzerland because they were having petanque courts and they were going to do a wedding venue outside. And we had residents adjacent to that. So they built that pretty wall, but that thing is sound deadening. When the corner bar went in, before it was the corner bar, it was the Penny Black. They have an actual covenant with the city that says if we get 3 complaints of sound, our general sound ordinance, within 1 year, you will lose your ability to have outdoor music. So certainly, we can do the same thing here. Our ordinance is really good about it, but they had actually a lever. If you pass 3 complaints, we're not going to just write you a ticket. We don't want to write you a ticket. We want you to comply. So again, I think that's something we could talk to Mark and his team about with Attorney Crott. Fair is fair. I mean, to treat everybody the same. It's not a bad thing to have. We haven't ever had to turn it in on the corner bar. Once in a while, they'll have an event, we call, they know what's going on, Chris shuts it down right away. So, that's a good question. So, it's not a bad idea to have that as a condition, to say, because you're outdoor dining, and are you gonna have music? If you are, you need to follow the certain compliance, or there'll be, ramifications.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's necessary. I don't know if we need to put, limitations or policies in place with, just to put them in place. Maybe if it does become, we could monitor, and if it becomes an
And we've
issue.
had, I think theirs was midnight, so normally you could be open till 2 as a bar.
Yeah.
We stop the music at midnight.
And just a couple other questions. I'm assuming that fire safety emergency has reviewed, they're good with it, access, okay? The other question I had was, I assume trash deliveries, all that'll be taken care of, just like the other restaurants, it'll all be one. That is helpful. Yeah, I think that was all my questions. I think it's exciting. Thank you.
Thank you. How about down here? Questions? Comments or thoughts?
I just say, I would echo everyone else's comments that I think it's a fantastically looking project, and I think it activates a little part of an area on your rooftop there. And I appreciate what you're saying about keeping it going 365 days of the year. When it's a little bit slow on the bottom, hey, let's allocate resources up on top. And I think it's a great idea. So, Mr. City Manager, or even Mr. Gasson, I don't know if it requires a motion based on the recommendation.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, I would make a motion to, subject to the applicant addressing all of the underlying comments noted that have been made here in the Planning Commission in the packet. I would recommend that this project be placed in a public hearing and make a motion for that at a next available meeting. That's my motion.
Thank you. How about support?
Question.
A question, go ahead.
Are we going to include the conditional on no platform dining?
When you get to
After the public hearing.
I'll support.
And we have support. Before I call roll, I just wanted to comment, well, we'll get a little close. I think, Roger, when you introduced your philosophy in planning or design about you and your company, you said, we like to take a creative and quality approach to our projects. And that was said in a number of ways up here already, but I just wanted to add, I think when I looked at it, I think, that looks a little different, but when I really looked at it hard, it was very creative. So how you guys collaborate on it, I just want to say that I think it's more than good. It's really good in terms of what it could bring to the community. As far as the coloration, the questions about, is that fit? Maybe some of the materials, that building's been there for a long time. And I know you're changing it, you're harmonizing with the building, which I think is really good. Not easy to do, surrounded by traditional buildings, and make it its own thing and look good. And that's what I think it is. I think it'll be a super welcome thing by all of the people in the community. That's my opinion. Hopefully it doesn't change before it comes back.
Don't jinx it.
It looks like it's really well thought out. And, yeah. So with that said, any other comments before I call roll? Roll call, please.
Gasson,
Yes.
Hauser,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Bachman,
Yes.
Clauser,
Yes.
Hardin,
Yes.
Kenjuk,
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing you guys when you're ready, assuming that it's next month.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, we have an item for consideration for amendment to the zoning ordinance. It says map here, but there's many more things to it than that. Am I turning it over to John or to?
Yeah.
Please, John.
Sure, I'll take it. So as we're all aware, we've been grinding through a lot of changes to the ordinance over the past several months, creating new districts, tackling the map. So what's in front of you tonight is sort of the collateral that goes along with that. So for instance, we created a number of new zoning districts. And throughout your ordinance, there are references to the previous districts in almost every section of the ordinance. I showed Nick, and anyone's welcome to take a look at this after the meeting, but every one of these tabs is a page that required a change as a result of those new districts. So I characterized it in the cover memo as housekeeping. So there's really no substantive changes. It's just to make sure that when you look in the parking district, there's references to the transition district, the mixed-use districts, the downtown edge districts, and so on. So it's really just to make sure that the ordinance continues to function and there aren't gaps that inadvertently occur because we didn't reference a newly created section. So that's the broad overview of it. And what we'd like is to set this for a public hearing as soon as possible.
Okay, I think we can make that happen. Any questions on what we saw in our packet? Commissioner Hauser?
Sure. I want to move this thing forward, and I want to do exactly what we're supposed to do. This is going to come back before Planning Commission for a public hearing, is that correct?
Yes.
Whatever technical glitches were, I think some of us didn't get it until today, or at least I wasn't able to access 180 pages. And whatever it is, those things happen. I'm willing to let this go forward, subject to us, or at least me, going through this line by line, because there's a lot of information here, and we got to get it right, and I want to make sure that we have the appropriate backstop. So as long as I have the assurance that the next meeting will be, what, possibly August, so we'll have 30 days possibly to go through it, then I'm okay with this thing moving forward, because I know time is of the essence, and you've put a lot of work, and I appreciate it, but 180 pages is a lot to digest in a matter of hours.
Yep, and I want to make sure we get it right, so more eyes on it, fine. If anyone has catches anything, please let me know, and we can make those
That's fine.
changes.
Following up on that, would you like to get information to manager
Yep.
in advance? I mean, right now, we're really not going to give any feedback, although I imagine there's some that could offer this or that. I'll leave that open to you guys to do that, but I'm inviting you all to send any comments to Nick or Jeremy in between, so we can proactively deal with, or John can, before
Sure.
we see it at the public hearing. You were wanting to say?
I was just, yes, to the extent that if we could, the sooner we get it, if there's another final, or if you see something, before the Thursday, before the meeting, it helps us significantly when there's this much content and it's this important. So if there's anything we could do preliminarily or in advance of, I certainly would appreciate it. Yeah.
And I might suggest we'll just to the next available, so if a lot comes in during the month, too much to digest, the next available would be September. We want to keep it moving, but we want you to be totally satisfied and come, because this has to go to the city council again.
Right.
So we're going to get another couple looks at it, so.
I appreciate, thanks, Mr. Mahana.
Anyone else want to add in?
I have a
Mayor?
clarification question on that. So the draft we're looking at today, this is basically the draft that we're going to look at the next, when we set the public hearing, right? So you have it. So,
Right, that's what I'm saying,
So
yeah.
we
This
can look
is-
at it starting now, give feedback. So I would hope we could hold a public hearing in August.
And that was my point, is like,
Okay.
if this is the one, then if it's going to come back in 30 days, I'm comfortable with this version, knowing that I've got 30 days to go through before the next meeting. That was my point, if I was not articulate, which could very well be the case.
Great. Still, if you have any questions, get them to Nick in case it requires any groundwork by us ahead of time so that we can answer your questions at the meeting and make it as productive as possible. One thing I don't think I mentioned, but it may be obvious to you, even though you just got the document, but this is basically the complete zoning ordinance with the new districts incorporated into it. So I didn't specifically say that, and I wanted to just mention that too.
Well, it's helpful that you colorize and underline to draw our attention to what you want us to look at. But it's hard not to look at everything at the same time.
Please don't.
Well, that's where most of the comments come from.
It was hard for me too.
Yeah, well, it's
Not to look
a
at
good way of,
everything.
it's called a little bit of housekeeping, so and I'm sure you did it too, but there's questions within the untouched stuff too.
Yeah, I moved a couple things around, but no content really. But.
Okay, any other comments before we roll call?
Mr. Chairman, unlike Mr. Hauser, who didn't have an opportunity to quit his occupation today, I did have that luxury, so I went through the pages and have some notes. It sounds like we just want to defer that to sort of an email submission instead of hashing some things out tonight.
I
But
think so. That's probably the better way to do it.
then I'll leave it for that.
Because we'll have plenty of time during public hearing and in between now and then.
Okay, very good.
Thank you for doing
Sure.
your job today, though.
Yeah, well, now I regret it.
I share your misery, though.
Okay, very good.
And Mr. Chairman, and remember for anybody watching that whenever we want to talk about other things that were in the zoning ordinance, we do that all the time. Wasn't the purpose of this, was just to meld the new districts to the zoning ordinance. Anytime something comes up, again, the zoning board asked for us to have you look at the side entry garage, things like that's going to continue to happen forever. Every time something changes in the world that would be affected in the zoning ordinance, we will go through that process here and to city council if there are ordinance changes. Work with Attorney Crott and with John's group. So nothing changes there. So we're not trying to fix everything that we thought we've heard over the last 20 years. That's through the master plan process, and that's through individual districts being analyzed on things that come up. I just want to make sure we know that. So.
Thank you. Roll call.
Gasson.
Yes.
Hauser.
Yes.
Sylvia.
Yes.
Bachman.
Yes.
Clauser.
Yes.
Harden.
Yes.
Kenjuk.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Thank you. Next item for consideration is ordinance amendment allowing for limited retail use in industrial zoning districts. Is that Attorney Crott going to speak to that?
Yes, hello.
Hello.
Hello, Commission. So before you today is something that you've talked about in generalities, but now we're looking at it more in print. So before Planning Commission and City Council, there's been requests and discussions over the last couple months about the opportunity to allow some limited retail use in the industrial districts. They're specifically, well, it's not geared necessarily towards the assistance league. That's the business that kind of brought this to the forefront. Both Planning Commission and City Council have taken a look at it and kicked it around, and most recently, City Council had said, you know what, we are interested in taking a look at to see what it would look like to have some limited retail in the industrial zone. So the idea is that not to have a standalone retail business down in industrial, but if there's industrial uses down there that they want to have a somewhat of a smaller retail component to the business. Right now, that would not be permitted under the current language because retail is not a permitted use in the industrial. So our instruction was to try to put something before Planning Commission to discuss what that might look like to have some modicum of retail that's associated with the businesses on South Street. One example that I know you've heard is that why does an oil change place get to sell windshield wipers? We all, I guess, would assume that that's all part and parcel of the oil change business. People don't just go, hey, I'm going to go to an oil change place to buy wipers, right? It's part of a greater service. So that's that is one of the examples that gets used. So we took some time and put together some language for consideration. Now this will, some of the language in here is actually current language, not to undo what John just talked about with his changes of use of terminology. So we'll make sure that if this moves forward and gets to City Council, that all the language will be melded together. For instance, you'll see it in here that we refer to it as special exception use versus the proposed new language would change it to conditional uses instead of special exceptions. So I'm going to go through and we're going to proceed until that language is changed or it goes to City Council. We'll just go through it with the way we have it currently, because that's the way it is now. So there's, just to give a little education, there's really three different ways a use can happen at a property. One is what we'd all most commonly know as the principal permitted uses. There's a whole laundry list of permitted nets. Those are uses that they wouldn't even have to come to City Planning Commission to get approval for. That's just, if it's industrial, it's allowed in industrial. And there's a whole laundry list in sections 1701 and 1801 for the two different zoning districts. So there's those, which are permitted principal uses. Then there's accessory uses, which are, they're permitted, but not as a standalone, but just essentially associated with it, with the principal use. So, parking parking areas to just general, you wouldn't have a standalone component to it, but since you have a restaurant with outdoor dining, that would be an example. So then there's what we call special exception uses. Special exception uses, those are actually, there's a specific section 2601 which talks about those in the code. I put that information in my memo, so I won't go through it, but it just tells you a little bit what a special exception use is. It's generally not considered appropriate throughout the district, but it could be if controlled, and it could be workable if planning. But those set of uses require planning commission to actually have the applicant come before it and to discuss it and to get approval. It's not as of right. It really is kind of a discretionary based on the conditions of that particular request. So before you is some proposed language. The industrial 1 district is starts at section 1701, but special exception uses are 1703. So this language is going to be the exact same for 1703 as 1803. So we'll just talk about it one time. So the idea is that we would add what I've used the term limited retail use. And the idea is that they would be allowed, but only in connection with and clearly incidental to the permitted uses on the property. And then I go through some proposed conditions, such as you can't have retail as the principal use. We're not trying to have competition with the central business district, right? This is not a driver to get people down to the industrial to have unlimited retail. Also, we kind of discussed would want this anywhere industrial, because if you recall, we have industrial on Woodward and other places, and the idea was that maybe we should just limit it to the industrial areas down on South Street, as there's a high volume of traffic and businesses down that, so it may be most conducive down there. So I did put in some suggested limitations on areas. And then we talked about parking, and Nick and I had a fair amount of discussion as to whether additional parking would be required, because as the commission knows, depending on the use at the property, that's the formula for how many required parking spaces. And so we're like, well, what do we do with it? And does the city want more asphalt and cement? And so Nick actually thought of the example of, well, maybe we don't, as long as it's not more than 25% of the total use, maybe we don't need to have additional parking requirements, much like the outdoor dining that we just talked about. So I thought that was a good thought, that if they're taking some of their industrial space up to 25% and having that as retail, do we really need more that property to have more parking associated with it? So we thought that might be a good starting discussion as to, is that appropriate? And then, we have run into a number of parking lots throughout the city that have, then received violation notices because they're just not kept up. And, the planning commission, that you guys see those a fair amount, we're like, the parking areas. So what we did in here is, if we're allowing a business to have retail, which is a natural driver for some people to go down there and more organized if they're customers versus just employees at a warehouse, that we think it was worth putting into writing that the parking areas have to be brought into compliance with off-street parking requirements, and as regard to the condition of it, the striping, the designated parking spaces. We thought this might be an opportunity to get those parking lots in order and in a good usable condition for people who would be coming there for retail uses. So we thought this was, pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but it would address City Council's request to have Planning Commission, because it's a zoning ordinance, it has to start here at this body. So it would be to discuss and If Planning Commission has changes and want to have it come back for another time without moving forward, we can do that, or if there's input, or if Planning Commission thinks it's pretty close and we're ready to move forward with it, since it's a zoning ordinance, it would have to be set for a public hearing, and so that would be the requested action if Planning Commission is comfortable with it as is, or with some small modifications. So, Nick, you can certainly jump in if you think I've missed anything, but I think that's kind of the idea before Planning Commission today.
Thank you, Attorney Crott. Okay. How about the commission? Any initial thoughts on this?
I'll go. Sure. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see, no.
By all means, please.
You'll follow him, Commissioner.
I want to thank Mr. Banda for the issue concerning the parking lot capacity and the number of parking spots for the 25%, and working with these business owners, say, okay, if we're going to do this now, you have to have X amount of parking, because it just creates this domino effect that I think defeats the purpose. And I'm comfortable with the cap on the percentage of 25%. I think it fits with the intent that a lot of these businesses have, whether it's some windshield wipers or some golf balls or a couch or a lawnmower that they happen to be selling. And so I feel confident that that percentage works. I also candidly like, for numerous reasons, the requirement that if you are going to do retail, if you are going to do that, then you need to bring your parking lot into compliance. So I think that's a good condition to encourage, compliance no matter what. And then the third part of it is that I don't think that it's going to be abused. And I think, frankly, it probably addresses a lot of concerns that are already being going out there, that it adds some uniformity and it adds some consistency. So, Mr. Kraft, thank you for putting this together. I know City Council talked about it a lot, and I'm sure the mayor may have some other comments as well. But personally, I think this addresses the concerns that had been brought to us, both in Planning Commission and City Council, and I'll certainly wait to hear what other people have to say, but I would be in favor of moving this forward for a public hearing.
Commissioner Bachmann?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I want to thank the Assistance League. They were very gracious in invitations to all the commissioners to come on property, talk about this issue, and I appreciate my time doing that. I think there's 12,000 square feet in the building, 9,000 of which is used for the Assistance League. They rent out the other 3,000. And the retail aspect is 1,500 square feet. So it satisfies the 25% requirement. So, Assistance League brought this forward. I think we're trying to fit this to that need at least. What I'm sort of curious about to understand a little bit better is, when I think of clearly incidental or ancillary, there's a relationship there. I don't think every definition of those words requires a relationship, but in my mind, there's not a lot of a relationship between, warehousing for these great programs, right? Operation School Bell, where, they have clothing that, Detroit Pontiac students can shop at their schools, or assault kits for domestic violence survivors, things like that. Furniture is very different, and it's actually related more to the operations of Resale Connection on Main Street. So is this really the right solution to address the issue we're all concerned about? It is what Assistance League doing for their operations going to qualify as ancillary or incidental?
Yes, Mr. Manager.
Yeah, I would say yes. So we want that relationship. What we were careful to avoid was McDonald's selling Happy Meals going in has nothing to do with anybody in the building. That would be a direct competition to Main Street. Rent a property that's zoned properly for commercial. If a portion of what you give golf lessons, but you sell used clubs, there's a relationship, right? It's I think the Bloomingdale's have a shop where they create things from recycled building parts, things, and made art out of it. what they do, that's ancillary to what they do. It's not a third party coming in or second party coming in. That's totally different than what they do. So that was the concept. And Attorney Crowd, to us, ancillary was to that business, not an independent party coming in there. Jeff, if you want to.
No, I think that's right, and Commissioner Bachman and I kind of had some discussion last week, as I recall. And really the idea is we looked at the definitions of accessory use, which is pretty similar to what we were just talking about, and that's actually in the zoning code, and it says accessory use is a use of a structure on the same lot and of the same nature, customarily incidental and subordinate to the principal use. And so, I didn't necessarily want to use the word accessory just because I didn't want to confuse it with the 1702 and 1802 language with accessory uses. But the idea is the same, is that we didn't want a separate independent. It had to be connected to those businesses. It could be more than one business at that location as well. That it's not the dominant use. We don't want to drive retail. We don't want people to think that's a retail area, because it just isn't. But we did want to allow for, or council wanted to allow for, some selling, because it really got, the discussion with the assistants really got down to cash registers, right? Is should we even allow a cash register down there to buy furniture? They had to buy it up at their other location and then go pick it up at this location. So that was one of the examples. Is it really is not necessarily a fool's errand, but do you really want to? It was never the idea to have it separate and distinct from the businesses on that particular location. I think that's hopefully what we've achieved here. But if there's language that needs to make it stronger, a relationship with, I'd certainly be entertaining to it. I know we had a discussion some years ago at the Cheese Lady location when there was a discussion as to whether they could put out during Art and Apples, and we got into it really needs to be connected to a business on that location. And I think once we really put those guardrails around it, we haven't had an issue since. And I think that's the same here. I think since it would have to come before Planning Commission, recall that this is not just something that the city administration can rubber stamp, but it would have to come back to Planning Commission to make sure it checks those boxes. So I personally am comfortable with the language as with the ancillary to permitted use, because I think in the planning world that means something. But I'm certainly open for whatever assistance I can provide otherwise.
And Mr. Chairman, I could add one more. There's a dance studio, and they wanted to be able to sell tutus, things like that. Well, there's a tutu shop uptown that was uptown on University, and they objected to that. And same thing, kind of turned them in like, I thought that's a dance studio, but now they could ask for a special exception and sell that as a portion of what they do in 25% of their space. So I could see why it could work out, but not necessarily compete, because it's a separate entity, taking on somebody go to Main Street into a commercial district, so.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So I have two questions / comments. So the first was, I was questioning how we got to 25% for ancillary, and I had a lot of thoughts around ancillary, similar to Commissioner Bachman. What does ancillary really mean? And in my mind, I think about this really wholeheartedly, like about this whole district, this zone, this South Street, and kind of where I think council is envisioning it could go to. And so why limit it at 25%? Why couldn't it be 49%? But when you tell me it's a trade-off where then we don't have to go through any parking hoops, I'm okay with the 25%. So my question is relative to Section 7, Item E, where it says, prior to limited retail use being allowed, the parking area must be approved. So what is that allowed process? Is that they need a new certificate of occupancy? So city manager, what would happen?
Right, so it would happen is they would bring in a new floor plan and say, I have 1,000 square feet, I want to use 250 feet of it as ancillary, no parking required, check the box, with a special exception. Now, we talked about this, if someone wanted 27%, I believe the way we can write the ordinance to say, if you want to have more than that, then you would ask under a special exception, you would be required to have extra parking for the extra. It would be up to the planning commission, not just give it to them, because someone could come in and say, okay, I want 80% retail. Now we've defeated the idea of keeping our industrial, and you're creating more pavement for parking. So, but 25% it's a freebie. Anything above that would be the latitude of the city, of the planning commission to decide. Maybe it's such an incidental, it's golf clubs and they need more room physically than tutus because they can line them up in shelves, right? So, 28% is not going to matter. I don't want to have you create more pavement for 2%. You would have the latitude of the planning commission to make that decision. That's how we saw it.
Okay.
Just to, I don't know if I cut you off there, Commissioner Bachmann, but before we go to Commissioner Clauser, I'll let you finish, if you didn't.
I did have a follow-up question, if you don't mind. And Mayor Salvia kind of led to maybe another question, which I've since forgotten in the back. I think it sounds like everybody's comfortable with this idea from a legal standpoint. Hopefully, we all remember this when people come to ask. I wonder if it has any impact on the grandfathered. So do they lose their grandfathered status and now have to come forward and make this request?
No, John, you can even wait. I would say they are grandfathered in unless they expanded their nonconformity. So under the nonconforming section of the zoning ordinance, if you expand one, you lose it. So then you'd have to ask for a special exception to actually bring you in compliance. So they would be okay now. There's only 2 of them. And anybody that wants greater space than what they have now, then they would have to come for a special exception.
And Mayor Salvia, I did remember what you jogged in. Really, I just want McKenna's opinion, and City Manager Banda, you kind of touched on it, which is, we got to protect our industrial base, right? There's very limited space. That was part of the concerns in previous discussions. So, Mr. Jackson, does McKenna have an opinion? Does McKenna feel this doesn't go so far as to make our industrial base vulnerable?
No, I think the way it's written now, it does exactly that. It sort of ensures that there's a cap on the amount of additional retail space you may get in there. So it's not going to change the complexity or the complexion of that district. So I think you're okay as far as that goes. What Nick was saying about the 25% being flexible, I think if that is the intent, we may need to modify that language in there a little bit. And I'll leave that to Attorney Craig to figure out exactly how to finesse that. But right now, it pretty much says 25%. That's what you can do. And anything other than that, as it's written now, would probably require the ZBA.
There would be a way to avoid ZBA to have it as part of the condition of the agreement.
All set?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
Commissioner Clauser?
I absolutely.
Thanks. I appreciate the effort here to clarify the limited retail use in industrial zones. I know we've had a lot of community comments, feedback on this. I think this is a good step, but I do have some concerns, which I think some of my colleagues raised already, and it's from a policy, legalese, language that's being used, I don't see, from the way we have it now in our zoning ordinance, we do allow for accessory use, which is incidental to the primary use. And if you look at the language that's being proposed in 7B and 6B, it says the same thing, and you have to comply with it. So I don't see us, and some of the advocates that we've heard didn't get their retail space approved because it wasn't accessory to the use. And we still have that in here. So I don't see that as getting flexible, which I think is kind of what the colleagues here are saying, but I'm getting at like the language here I don't think allows that flexibility, even though we're saying it does. And I think, so my suggestion though, coming with solutions here is to either, we broaden the language so that it says something like direct sale or showroom retail related to the principal use is allowed, just clarify in there, what are we talking about? Or in the definition section, because we also have a definition section, just add a accessory industrial retail. What does that mean? And then clarify, it's small retail areas where merchandise is produced, assembled, or stored on site. Something to just like nail this,
No, I think it's a
put the
good
nail in the
idea.
coffin on this,
Yeah,
put more
Jeff,
clarity on
we
it.
could come up with that, because right now, ancillary or accessory couldn't be any form of retail. So it's not allowed at all. So this is opening that door, but to define it tighter, good idea.
Yeah, and then, I think that addresses some of that. And then the other thing I had was the 25% too. So, I guess it feels like the 25% is trying to put guardrails on the part of the language that says incidental to the primary use, right? By 25%, we're saying it's a quarter of the property usage, right? But I don't know if that's, so I guess my question is if that, the retail portion, though physically smaller, generates more revenue than the warehouse portion or the industrial portion, is that going to be allowed? Is that still considered incidental when really that's the primary generator of funds now? So again, we might just need some more clarity and definition around that. And I don't know if the 25%, again, is that just an arbitrary to keep it small, or is there more details and guardrails we have to put in place or less? I'm not sure which way to go, but do you get what I'm saying?
I do. And so the way we define it, and it helped us, the fact that our zoning ordinance has nothing to do with financial, it has to do with space, physical space. So the 25% felt good about, and 75% of our industrial land will be producing industrial opportunities. 25% can be ancillary. Doesn't matter how much money you make there. It doesn't require you to physically go into the zoning ordinance and say parking calculation. It doesn't say for $1 million, if you make $1 million, you have to put more parking. It's not driven that way. It's
space.
just physical space. So
That
I
makes
think we're
sense.
okay.
Okay. And then two more things. And then this still doesn't allow for some of the local business issues that we heard. Specifically, there were small warehouse-style retail shops that wanted to be there that sell directly to the public. This won't address that issue.
Unless they were leasing a space for their warehouse, and 25% of that space was open, just like the assistant police talking about. But we do not want independent people coming in and taking space that's $13 a square foot versus $40, $30 a square foot on Main Street. That was the, when we ran this by the Business Development Committee, it's like, don't compete with Main Street. They understand the opportunity, but if you're an independent user, you should have to go to a retail spot. Most cities don't allow that mix, so.
Yeah, I just, again, thinking about the recent comments we got, and one of the shops we closed, I don't think this would fit. So maybe not closed is the right word, but so I don't think it addresses that one. But then, and then the last thing I have is, so I see why we're putting it on South Street, the limitation there, but I would say I think we should potentially expand that pilot beyond South Street. Maybe after a trial period of 1 or 2 years, we can look back to see how it worked, because I could also see this in diversion when some of those developments come up, having small retail pieces within that industrial area. If it's still industrial, we can get, it's not, it's changing. Okay. Well, then the other one too that comes to mind is Ludlow. I could also see small retail wanting to be in there, given the skate park and other things that are going there. And while that's industrial, there might be 25% retail that someone would want to put in there. So again, I just think I get why South Street for now, but I think we should come back to that and look at it later to expand it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Hauser.
I had a procedural question, and I think the comments from the commissioners are duly noted, and I guess this would be more for the city attorney. If there are changes made or there's suggestions made about tightening certain things or removing things, if we were to set this for public hearing, do we have to set, does the proposed ordinance have to be set before we can move on? Meaning, so you would bring changes back in August, we would review them again, and then it would be set for public hearing? Or can we move forward and then you could have modifications in August? I guess I'm just looking for a course of action here to keep it moving forward.
That's a great question. So really, it's a comfort level for Planning Commission, because you are required to have a public hearing, but that doesn't have to be the last time you see it. And what I mean by that is, you know, not that you're checking the box, but you're also getting public input, if any. And so if planning commission, you know, Nick and I can go through and take a look and tighten up some of this language. It's not an overly complicated ordinance. I would be comfortable if you wanted to set the public hearing. That doesn't mean you can't change it when you get there. If you don't like it and say, Jeff, your language stinks, you know, we need to change it, you could change it then. We could have yet another planning commission meeting after that meeting. You can do whatever you want to do. So it's really a comfort level to, if you want to move it forward, or at least take the procedural step of getting public hearing, or excuse me, public comment, this may be a good idea to set it for a public hearing at your August meeting. And then if there's any concerns from the public, that might be the better opportunity to hear it. So I could go either way. It really isn't a requirement either way to have it all buttoned up and ready to go before you set it for a public hearing.
Thank you.
Any other questions, administration?
I have a question. Is retail space a defined term? I'm just trying to think through scenarios where, like, is that the physical area that you can purchase products? Is it the area encompassing everything that's for sale? I mean, could you have a 100 square foot lobby in a 10,000 square foot building? And
Fair question. So it would be the defined area where the product is in, would be 25%.
so nothing outside of that 25% could technically be for sale?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, following up to Mr. Hauser, just a procedural question. And you can tell me, don't worry about it, everything's going to be fine, and we can move on. But I guess I'm just a little bit confused, because in the last consideration, 6B, I think it was, we'd struck both industrial classes and introduced LI, right, light industrial, in that previous section. Here, we're making modifications to I1 and I2, which are completely struck in the other document. How does this actually get into the zoning ordinance?
So, yeah, if I may, Mr. Chairman. So, and that's where I kind of led off with, you know, John just introduced 200 pages worth of material that's going to have changes to it. Really, when I took a look at it, really the only changes to this ordinance, if it gets down that far, or the other ordinance gets down that far, we're going to change the title from special exception to conditional use, is truly just swapping out the words special exception and inserting conditional use. So I can tell you, don't worry about it, but I get why you're worrying about it, but right now, you're considering a zoning ordinance that refers to it as, you know, I1 and I2. So that's why it's before you in that form. That's just a titling issue. So if this went down the same path, my guess is that this might go faster down the path than the whole ordinance change. So I mean, it's a cart before the horse, but we could either put in there special exception uses now, and we can put in brackets, you know, conditional uses, and then just know that if the other one passes with that word change, then we'll just use the other language. So I'm not personally worried about it, because I know if the language changes, we'll just change the wording of the titles here.
Okay, makes sense. In looking at the whole document, I was looking at your subject items. I was thinking, since we're calling it an ancillary use, to limit signage on the building to the primary use only, not some other add-on signage. Do other commissioners think that might be a way to underplay the retail side of whatever this thing is? Or maybe administration or the attorney has a thought on that? You know, then it kind of promotes sales, which I think what I'm seeing is we want to allow sales, but don't promote sales, or almost saying, yeah, you can do it, but limiting it is really what we're doing.
Yeah, the only comment I would have, I had this drilled into me over the years, that sign ordinances universally in the United States of America have to be content neutral. You can put anything you want. I can't control the words. I can only control the size, the color, things.
Okay.
So they drill that to you all the time. I've seen some signs.
Sounds like a no idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for helping me understand that. Okay, I think we've thoroughly discussed this item. I hope, Jeff, you got a lot of, I'm sorry. We haven't thoroughly yet. We have one more.
No, I think I have to introduce another question. I've been struggling since it was stated that the retail space is going to be about 3,000 square feet. That could be a relatively high-volume retail space. What are the largest parcels on South Street? Do you know that offhand?
Patio shop's about 30,000 square feet.
So that would be a 7,500 square foot retail space, potentially. That would be large.
The only good news is they have a very large parking lot.
They sure do.
I guess what I'm wondering is maybe, we can start at 25%, but maybe put a hard cap saying it can't exceed 2,500 square feet.
Or
In that case, they would need 37 and a half spaces, plus their industrial, they'd have probably 50 extra. It's going to be case by case, kind of, and again, being a special exception, I think we'd have the ability to say, it's too big. You can't get 25% because we're not, without more parking. So I think you could look at it because you're going to have control over the special exception or the conditional use. John?
Yeah.
maybe like applying the 25% allowable use area, use some formula that if existing parking doesn't seem like it'll support it, if you exceed this much percent of lacking parking, you have to add X. Yeah, I'm sure you could figure something like that out, or when we encounter something like that, we'll know we need to do something.
Right, plus, as Jeff pointed out, every special exception use has to meet a series of other criteria that are spelled out in the ordinance, general criteria. Is it consistent with the intent of the district? Is it compatible with the adjacent uses? Is it, consistent with the master plan? There's several criteria that you have to apply when you review a special exception use. So if you got something that was 7,500 square feet and was selling, tons of stuff, it was clearly not consistent with the intent of that district. So you could say, no, we're going to have to ratchet it down somehow, so.
Or make them create.
Very good. Can I now say we're thoroughly discussed on this one? Okay, so looking for a motion. Commissioner Hauser.
All right, so based on what was represented by the city attorney, that we can move forward with public hearing, and we may have some additional comments or some additional changes, recognizing that, I want to keep this thing moving. I think we all do, and city council did as well. I'll make a motion to move this proposed ordinance to public hearing at the next available meeting.
Support.
Support? Do we have a question on that?
I have a question about just the motion. So I do think we should add, like I said, additional language to clarify that. Is that, we'll see that new language at the public hearing? Okay. That's what I was thinking.
Prior to, you get to.
Okay.
Okay, with a motion and support, a roll call, please.
Gaston.
Yes.
Hauser.
Yes.
Salvia.
Yes.
Bachman.
Yes.
Clauser.
Yes.
Hardin.
Yes.
Kenjuk.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Attorney Kratt.
You're welcome.
We're going to have public comments in just a few minutes, if you would. They could, but I just want to keep the meeting moving, and you will have an opportunity. I'll definitely call on you then. Okay, next item is Zoning Board of Appeals recommendations, and I assume, Nick, you're going to lead on that?
Okay. So, what happens from time to time is when the zoning board, it's an unwritten rule, a planning rule, but if they see a certain case 3 times, then they start to question, is there something wrong with the existing zoning ordinance? Why are we saying the exact same request over a period of time? So, in this case, Jeremy put together a outline here that a couple of things. So, the concept a few years back was we were on a tour. We took the Planning Commission, City Council on a tour of a home on Ludlow, that had the brick home on Ludlow next to the vacant lot. He had built a side entry carriage-style garage in the front of the home, had a blank brick wall. And everybody else on the street basically had a nice front porch on the front of their home. So it got to a lot of people, and it was like, wow, how can you do that? The ordinance did not talk about that situation. So on very small lots on the west side of town, it was virtually impossible to do what he did. He happened to have an 80-foot wide lot. The lot next door also was the exact same width. The gentleman that bought that property and his wife came in, and they didn't want to live next to the blank wall, but they also needed a carriage-style garage. So they went to the zoning board and asked, said, but we'll put windows in to make it look like a room on the home, which made the other one stick out even further. So after all this discussion, and we drove around town and looked, they felt that in R1, 2, and 3, and 4, it was not appropriate to have carriage-style garages in front of the home. They wanted them in the rear. So as time went on, our environmentalists started talking to us about lot coverage, pavement coverage, percent of green space on individual lots, and the collateral fallout of putting your garage in the rear was you needed a 9-foot wide driveway, 135 feet to the back of your house, all concrete. Put the garage in the back, turn to an angle, no backyard. So people with families are having a hard time saying, well, I'm going to give, I need a 2-car garage, but I can't get it on my lot without putting all this pavement in. So we stuck to no carriage-style garages in the front. Because on Elm Street and Harrison, if you've ever been down there, there's a big fall off in the backyard. So the homes sit up, literally to get in their garage, you go down like 15 feet into their ground. They have drains at the bottom in front of their homes. So they were coming and saying, I can't literally put my carriage-style garage in the back. I can't get down there. So now I'm penalized. I can't even have a garage. So what if so they went to the zoning board, made their case. Their exception was the grade of the property is forcing me to put a garage in the front. They were granted those exceptions. But they also had to put glass on the front and make it look like an addition on the home, not a garage that had a blank wall. So the zoning board felt, instead of making them come here, why can't you change the zoning ordinance to allow them, if you have certain conditions, which we would bring to you, and show you pictures and say, we think this would fit in these districts. So they asked if you would entertain at least the thought of reversing that, but put conditions on that would affect that. So it was 2 things. Take away the exception for the grade. If the grade was there and it was a problem in the rear, you can't get back there without extraordinary expense to build up the dirt and put retaining walls in the back. That should be allowed under the zoning ordinance. So those 2 are kind of together. And then lastly, we just had some cases where existing homes were bought. There's 2 different circumstances here, but an existing home was bought. And again, years ago, people wanted their front porches. But they had to keep their property at, remember, 30% is the maximum lot coverage that you can have. So a lot of the cases when they're trying to put porches on, they're getting right up to that 30%. And to do that, they're making the porches 3 or 4 feet wide. So if you can picture the corner, again, Ludlow and 7th, the Bishops, not Mike Bishop, but Bishop from the FBI, retired, he has a little skinny porch, and he can't even put a seat there. And his wife came in and it's like, why do we even do this? So Planning Commission reevaluated that, said we're going to have all porches be a minimum of 6 feet wide. So you get a real porch, like Joey was talking about, the balconies, a functional porch. So now what's happened is some of the people that are at 29 to 30% lot coverage, for instance, the last one we just had was on Highland. He's the only one on the block basically with no front porch. His neighbors are like, put a front porch on. He would love to, but it put him over by 0.8%, 275 square feet, or he put a 3-foot garage, or 3-foot porch again. So they said, why can't you entertain, don't count covered porches in the front yard that meet all other ordinance requirements. I'm getting in the weeds here, I know, but you're allowed to go, it's 25-foot setback to your home. You can encroach 13 feet of that with a porch as long as you're 10 feet away from the property line. Sometimes that allows you a 3-foot porch, sometimes a 6-foot porch. They said if you took away don't count that porch in lot coverage, but it still has to be 10 feet back because it's not habitable. You're not making the house bigger. You're not really beating the system by adding designing your house and then making the porch bigger. They didn't want you to do that. So they asked, would the Plan Commission consider us drafting an ordinance to come in with some restrictions to be considered by this body, take it under consideration. And if we felt that was appropriate, then again, we would show a lot of different pictures and examples, how they feel it should be applied into a new zoning ordinance. And that would go to city council ultimately, who made that decision on the garages. So that's pretty much what we're asking for you to consider those things. What's that? Okay, yeah. So that would be the ask tonight. Would you be interested in staff coming back with recommendations to work with our planner to do best practices and see if that they also talked about the building height. I don't think that's on here, right?
Building
Oh,
height.
is it? I'm sorry. I knew I mixed one. So today people come in and, again, in the weeds, you have in the residential districts, you have a 25-foot high restriction. It's not, so if your roof is like this from the ground, it's not 25 feet to the peak. It's a formula in a picture in the zoning ordinance that says it's halfway up a gable roof. You go halfway up, drop a line down, 25 feet. What's happening is, and you can still have 2.5 stories in Rochester. That half stories become uninhabitable because of the 25 feet. In most communities, it's 30 to 35 feet. So architects have got really good at this, where if you flatten that roof out and extend it down low, you can actually go up higher. It's a game. They're like, we don't want to deal with that game every time. Either make a decision and say 30 feet's fair. It's not going to raise up necessarily a flat roof would be stuck at 30 feet, but you can get the gable. Across the street from me on my home, to the top of the cupola is 42 feet in a residential district because it's not habitable. It wasn't part of the roof line. So they played a little bit of a game. So they want to define it to say, at 30 feet, you're going to get a full 2.5 stories. Don't change it to 3 stories. Leave it at 2.5, but calculate it 30 feet to the angle on the roof. So on the garages, we were having the same problem. People wanted to use the upstairs garage not to be habitable, so you couldn't put a bathroom upstairs, or you could put living quarters upstairs, but you could have a bathroom on the first floor in a garage. But the only way to do that was get that extra 1 foot from 12 to 13. We did it, and my next door neighbor did. It's a beautiful little studio that he works out of on his own. It's a home occupation. Doesn't look bad. People think it's pretty cool. That made an adjustment. Never have had another request for that extra foot because we adjusted the zoning ordinance to follow today's today's standards. So again, if we're willing to consider this, we would bring a draft ordinance to you in the next couple of months. But we told them and promised them that we would bring this to the Planning Commission for consideration.
Thank you, Nick. I'll add a couple comments to that, just to broaden the reasoning. The front porch idea, it's part of the traditional look of downtown, especially the older neighborhoods. And I think we want that. The front porch doesn't create mass. You can still see through the columns, et cetera. And it presents itself to the community, not just the street, because that socialization that comes from that, I think, is really one of the charming things about the city. We don't want to take that away, and by penalizing that as coverage, I think that's an important thing to note as well. But I also want to add it to some of this draft language that's already here. Things need to be defined, like what says 1 story for how you calculate the basement. So in terms of what item was that? The reasoning for the garage. So I think I need to sharpen that up as we move this along through the process. But I think the concepts are exactly what we struggle with on the ZBA, is why we keep seeing this, because it can easily be cleared up, because generally when those get to ZBA, the answer is generally yes. So why make it a question at all? Just make the ordinance what it should be. And not that it needs to go through scrutiny, but I think we don't struggle with it, but it's usually the content of our ZBA meetings, and really is meant to be more unique situations, not something that we see all the time.
Yeah, I would agree. And the fact that there's some pretty straight line ZBA members over the years that if you self-create a hardship, the way the ordinance is, it's a state law, it's a separate zoning group there, independent of the planning commissions or anybody. So if you have if you get denied by the zoning board, you go to court. That's the only relief that you have. So they have autonomous power, if you will. But we talked about even on the front porches, if someone got approved for a front porch, like David said, open, but then they came in and enclosed it, now that's habitable space. That's a 3 seasons room. That's a whole different story. That should be a lot of coverage. So So if they ever give somebody a waiver for that, it would be, you can't enclose it. So again, language could be written into the ordinance that talks about that. And I agree with the socialization. We're taking that away by not giving the opportunities for these now. The best, when the gentleman this last month, the gentleman that rehabbed the house on Highland, took it to 29.8% on purpose. Knew he couldn't have a porch. And he knew the ZBA was not going to grant a lot coverage waiver. But when the new gentleman bought the house, he didn't know that. So he said, I would have made the house 6 inches shorter in depth so that I wouldn't have had to come here. I'd rather have the porch than the 6 inches. But I didn't control that. But we don't want to play that game where somebody games the system where they go 30%. Oh, now I can have my front porch that's 25 feet wide, 6 feet deep, and it doesn't look right. So again, we can craft language to identify that, I think. I think it's a fair thing to give a good look at it.
Yeah, I think it would be a good thing for us to look at, and there's going to be more too, so.
Yes, sir.
What do the commissioners think? Any initial input?
Always willing to look and listen.
Yeah. I have a list of questions for each one, but do you want me to go through them now or send them over? How do you?
But if we do the same thing, if you want to email me so we can get it.
Yeah.
But go, if you want to say.
Generally, I support these. I think, right, we're trying to do the right thing. We're providing more flexibility for our homeowners, and balancing, right, our communities and the dying. Just a couple of things. So for like I will say, again, blanket statement, I do worry about these because I know they're very sensitive and there's a lot of background and history to each of these, and I worried about equity and like what this is going to do if they are changed. So that's just a general worry about public reaction. But for the front porch, just a couple of questions. So have we considered other ways to incentivize the front porch, like a larger front porch, other than changing the calculation of 30%? Because that calculation, as you guys know, is sensitive. People already feel like we stretched the 30% now for saying, oh, we don't count the front porch either. We don't count the garage. We don't, like we're stretching it. So
absolutely. It's
yeah.
a balance point that how big is too big. So
right.
This didn't come from staff. 30% is a lot, especially when we know we're trying to balance this impervious area.
That's my next question.
That means it is going to be 0.8 or 1% more impervious area because that garage is not green, right? Or sorry, the porch is not a green space. So it's something we need to have dialogue about. I think you can't have it both ways. If you're over 30%, you're over 30%.
Yeah.
Right? But whether it counts or not.
Yeah, and those are my other comments on this is have we considered, what that might do to the impervious surface and the green spaces that we also have? I think you already said something about the setback. It won't change the setback. The setback has to be the same, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. And then the maximum roof height, same thing there. I just, will the additional height result in homes that feel out of scale for the neighborhood? Especially in some of those R3 and R4, which might be changing now, but they have the smaller lot sizes. So will this, how will that feel to their neighbors? Are there going to be shadows cast? Do we have to put in maybe some kind of design guidelines so that that third floor is more integrated thoughtfully than just maximizing volume, to your point, with a flat roof or something? Again, just a consideration. I'm going to go through these quickly. And then the last one with the garage style, I guess, is there... what is the definition of, I think it says grading change on one story, but maybe we want to more clearly define one story because that's kind of ambiguous. And then I also wonder, could this lead to like unintended impacts to the neighborhood or the streetscape or things like that? So just, I guess, also with some of these having those visual designs that you mentioned with each of them, if they do want to propose language, would be really, really helpful. I also think that potentially for the garage style, we could have a requirement where maybe a design review or an engineer sign-off is required for that because of the grading proposal and the grading changes. Again, I'm not an expert on what that would be, but something like that too, to just put in some more guardrails for those garage style, because I know those are really sensitive too.
Agree 100% because, we also talked about, hopefully we'll have this part of the discussion, an existing home might get a front porch because they're not going to be penalized because the home's already there. A brand new home, why should they get 30% plus a big garage? So I think that's stuff that we could talk about to say, should this only apply to existing homes so that we don't, I can tell you there'd be more than 10 people that would come in and say, oh,
Yeah.
now you can have a carriage-style garage, and I didn't get to do
Yeah.
it, so I designed my house this way. So we talked to Attorney Crowd about that, and we'll talk to John about that, but to me, it's easy to go to the zoning board and make your case. If you can get there, but not all zoning board commissioners feel that way. Some were like,
Yeah.
well, I'm tired of seeing these, but there's a reason you're seeing them, because somebody's taking advantage of a situation that they didn't create. But
Yeah. Two other real quick comments, because what you said just now, I also wonder, like, if they get all of these things, what does that do? Right? It feels like a lot at once if you get all these approvals for a new house. And then the second one was, oh man, now I've lost it. You said, what did you say? All of it? And then,
roofs, garages, lot coverage, impervious.
New houses.
Send an email.
I don't know, it'll come to me, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Excellent.
You know, I've got lots of, yeah. Thank you.
So we're looking to have a motion to either maybe direct administration to work with Attorney Crott and the planner instead of going to public hearing. Okay, that's what I'm looking to hear. Provide a motion to provide direction to administration to work with the attorney and the planner to come back to us with refined language based on what we talked about tonight. Or anything else you want to say?
Oh, I do remember now. I agreed with you, that's what I was trying to say. When you said that, I don't think I get why again, looking for signals, right? That it's a signal if people keep coming back for exceptions for the same thing. But I also feel like it puts more eyes on it and more awareness, where we put some of these in writing and now they automatically get some of those approvals, and that makes me a little nervous too, especially given the sensitivity. So I was just.
No, and that's fair, because when a ZBA goes out, everybody within 350 feet gets a notice on something that would be just permitted, no one's going to get.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
exactly.
I'll make a motion to direct administration to bring these three topics back to Planning Commission with the details and information as requested.
Thank you. Support?
Support.
Support. Any questions on the motion? Roll call.
Gasson,
Yes.
Hauser.
Yes.
Salvia.
Yes.
Bachman.
Yes.
Clauser.
Yes.
Harden.
Yes.
Kenjuk.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
Thank you. Would you, Mr. Manager, measure the next agenda and put this on the agenda or not? So we could have a little time on taking care of that. Next is miscellaneous. I'm sorry, we'll get to public comments next. Any miscellaneous? Okay, and to point to administration, isn't miscellaneous following public comment? Shouldn't it be in the agenda?
I don't change, it wouldn't have changed from our end in the last, I've
I
never
was just
changed
thinking
it.
about well, our miscellaneous maybe could consider public comments.
We can flip it, that's not an issue.
Yeah.
We will flip it, because that ZBA, if they want me to just talk about stuff, we can close the meeting under, so it's not.
Yeah.
I'll
Okay,
do that.
so no miscellaneous, we're going to move to public comments, so please come up to the podium. Yes, ma'am.
Why do I feel like you'd just like me to walk out of here right now?
That's why I kept it the way it was.
And that's what I figured.
You're always welcome.
Oh, thanks. Janie Azek, 986 Churchill Circle, and representing the Assistance League at 204 South Main and 440 South Street. Thank you to the commissioners and council people who accepted our invitation to tour our warehouse to see and learn about our business. Our business is our programs, which include but aren't limited to Operation School Bell. We help, I've said this so many times, assault survivor kits, nourishing neighbors, pass it forward, one-to-one tutoring, and link to creative teaching. We want to add more programs, but we are limited by our resources. 87% of our warehouse is used to hold and assemble the supplies needed for our programs. The remaining 12% is our furniture annex, where we sell donated furniture. These sales, along with the profits from the resale connection at 204 South Main and our fundraisers, provide the funds to run our business. Assistance League of Southeastern Michigan is a nonprofit organization run by approximately 285 volunteer members. We are one of 120 chapters within the National Assistance League. We are not trying to eliminate light industrial. We are not trying to recreate Art Van. We are not competing with Main Street. We ask you to approve the ordinance amendment allowing limited retail use. We are open Thursdays and Saturdays from 11 until 2. Additional dates align with the DDA events. We have ample parking and are not trying to add more. We do not have the luxury of selling under the radar. Please allow sales transactions at our warehouse. Make all of South Street legal by approving the ordinance amendment. Again, we welcome everyone to tour our warehouse. Come during our open hours or contact me and I will make arrangements. I believe my picture and contact information is on a dartboard at City Hall.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the audience? Rose, is there anyone online? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Okay,
There's no one online.
thank you very much. Meetings, oh, 1 second. Chief, do you have anything to add?
Maybe just a blank comment, how about that?
Okay.
For the last couple of months, we've been doing a scorecard for blight, and we've been sending it off to the city manager, and I think he's sharing it with council. We do appreciate getting phone calls and people using C-Click Fix. As I put in the last note to the city manager, understand that the majority of our work is done by what we call windshield surveys. And so, you know, we see the big things. And so there's things that we don't see because we don't walk the street all the time. There are places that we do. So if people do have concerns for what they think might be blight, please utilize the city services of C-Click Fix, or feel free to go ahead and call me at the fire station and we'll follow up on it. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. With that, meeting adjourned.
Hey, Nick.